All right, so we'll skip the technical stuff that was missing. We're going to skip over the technical stuff and just save the recording from here. All right, so what I want to try to show here are some of the at least a few pictures from the trip that we just took to the Galapagos. So this was a trip that we'd been planning for quite some time. We had actually booked it back in what was it? Back in February of 2020, and we had planned to go on this trip last year, but we couldn't because a little thing called COVID popped up, and people couldn't travel. So we had booked the flights. We were able to find a really good flight deal, and then had everything ready to go. But we had to keep delaying again and again, and then we were finally able to go in August of 2021, and we're able to go for about 2 weeks. So we live in the Washington D.C. area. So we had to, get to the Galapagos, which are here, this tiny little dot off the coast of Ecuador. Maybe I can find a better map that actually has more space on it or something like this. This should be better, especially if I can zoom in on this. I don't know. Oh, maps of countries. Oh, we can zoom in and do a map of a country. Okay. Okay, sure. Something like this. All right, there you go. Hey, there we go. All right, so here's Ecuador. So, in order to get down to, in order to get down to Ecuador, we had to take a couple flights. First, we had to fly from DC to Miami. Then we flew from Miami to Quito. And then from Quito, you can fly to the Galapagos. You can't get to the Galapagos without going through Ecuador. The only way to get there is the only flights that go in there come from Ecuador. I guess you could technically take a boat, but realistically, you have to fly, and the only way to fly there is from Ecuador. So we went to Quito first, and I do want to share a couple of the pictures from Quito because Quito was a cool place to visit. All right, so let me go ahead and pull some of these up. So we had these long flights. We actually had our initial flight that was going to go from DC to Miami get canceled on the day of the trip. So we had to rebook flights to get there. And fortunately, it worked out. We ended up flying DC to Orlando, Orlando to Miami, Miami to Quito. And then we got there and it was like 10 at night. And we had a rental car because we were going to drive from the airport to our hotel in downtown Quito, but they didn't have a navigation system. We were like, we're going to have a navigation system because otherwise it's going to be really hard to get around. But they didn't have a navigation system. So we were trying to figure out what the heck to do until finally we figured out that Liz could use the Wi Fi in the rental car location to download Google Maps of Quito to her phone, and then we'd be able to use them in offline mode once we were away from the Wi-Fi. So that's how we ultimately got there, and we didn't get there until like 11:30 at night. But fortunately, our hotel owner was super duper nice and was still awake, and we were still able to park the car. But anyway, Quito. A little bit about Quito. We were there for basically 2 nights and really one day on our way going to the Galapagos. So Quito is a really unique city. It's extremely mountainous, like not just hilly, it is a mountainous city. And the downtown Old Town region is really cool because you have like these super steep hills, and then you have kind of this like these narrow medieval alleyways, and then you have all this Spanish colonial stuff in the downtown. So anyway, this is a picture of the view from our hotel. Our hotel had a little balcony, and so this is the street we came down on, looking uphill, and then this is the view looking downhill in the street. So I just going to give a couple quick pictures here, and then this is the view from up on top of our hotel, looking out at the rest of the city. Really, really cool city. Like in terms of the geography. So like mountains on one side, mountains on another side, hills everywhere, and uh, a lot of, well, just a lot of cool views. So these are just, like I said, we took like, I don't know, 3,000 pictures. I'm not going to show all the pictures, but I just wanted to show some of the highlights here. And these were some of the better views of what Quito looked like. All right. So let me close that and we'll skip ahead. So one thing that you will notice as I go back to our third grade map here of Ecuador is Quito is located right by the equator. Quito's here and the equator's here. And I was going to show this on Google Maps, but we're staying away from Google Maps for right now. So we basically had one day in Quito to explore things. And I had looked at some different things you could go do, but one of those is you can go to see the actual equator, and there is some stuff there. So that was one of the things we did. We had our rental car and we drove up to this area right here, which is right where the equator is, and there was some tourist stuff in that area. So let me show you what that looked like when we got up there. So I mentioned that Ecuador is very mountainous, at least in the area around Quito. So we drove up and we went first to this place, which was uh, the Temple of the Sun, which is a little tourist attraction. It ended up being a little bit more of a tourist trap than I was expecting, but it was a recreation of what like one of these local indigenous temples might have looked like. And they had some stuff on like the indigenous culture that they talked about. There's Liz posing with the mountainous backdrop here, and they had like all this. I want to say like Incan, although the local people in Ecuador are not technically Incans. Incans were further to the south, but the coolest thing about this place was just like the scenery. Like you had this crazy background scenery because you're really up in the mountains. And anyway, so this is just some of the stuff. Also, we saw a lot of dogs, so we have pictures of the dogs, just as an FYI. They did a little ceremony for us outside. Everybody else that was in the little group were local Ecuadorians, so everything was in Spanish, but we did have someone who was translating for us in English. And anyway, this was just kind of like a tourist trappy thing, but still was kind of neat to see. So just a couple pictures of what that looked like. And then after that, we went to the actual equator. You guys can still see this, right? Yeah. So the actual equator, yeah, now you get why the terrace gives +2 culture. So we went to where the equator is located, and there's a touristy stuff there as well called Mitad del Mundo, or Center of the World. So here's Liz posing with the sign. And there was more stuff on like local indigenous culture, but it wasn't great, I would say. It was okay. And of course, there's a bunch of souvenir shops where you can buy a bunch of different stuff. But the big thing that you go to see is this. There's this big monument that's located by the equator. So these photos are actually not organized yet. I will spend time organizing them. This is just kind of everything dumped here. But they have this big monument here, and it's almost on the equator. It's really close. It's not on the actual equator, but it's like about 100 meters away. The story is that when they were surveying this, they made an error in the surveying. So this is not actually on the equator, but it's really close. Like I said, it's maybe about 100 meters off from where the actual equator is. So we'll just pretend that this is the real equator here. But they put up this big monument, and you get these views from the top. So we'll pretend that this is accurate and not slightly off. So northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and then you get these views looking out, which is another good way to see what the area looks like. So and this is the view from up top. If I remember correctly, the actual equator is like roughly where this building is located. So it's very close, but there's actually nothing to see where the real equator is. Um, but yeah, just to give you an idea of what this looks like. All right, and then the next thing that we did was there is a cable car that will take you on top of some of the mountains surrounding Quito, Teleférico. So we went and did that. I should mention I don't think I mentioned this before. Quito's at high altitude. At the base of the cable car, the elevation was 3,100 meters. So that's almost 10,000 feet above sea level for those of us in the USA with really crazy measurement systems. And then at the top, it was 3,900 meters, which is 13,000-ish feet. And the temperature up at the top is averages only 6 degrees Celsius, which is about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So yes, definite elevation. It was definitely kind of dizzy inducing at the top. Liz was better than me. I felt a little bit more dizzy. But anyway, so here's the cable car going up. We had a bike rack on ours, which was really annoying because it made the pictures a little bit trickier to get. But this is the view, and this is this is why you pay to go up on the cable car, because you get these amazing views of Quito and just sitting in the middle of the mountains. So that was really cool to see. And this is going up the hills, going up the hills. Um, Ecuador or Quito's in the Andes, so there are some incredibly tall mountains in the area. You can see some of these volcanoes. So, like one of these peaks is 5,800 meters, another peak is 6,200 meters. That's almost 20,000 feet in non-metric, but very, very, very tall. We were at 3,900 meters, and some of these peaks are another 3,000 meters above that, or almost 3,000 meters above that. Anyway, so just more of the views. Just yeah, this was a cool place to visit just because you got these awesome views looking out. Anyway, and we didn't spend a lot of time there because we had other stuff that we wanted to see. But I did want to just toss those out quickly. All right. And then in the time we had left, we went back to our hotel, parked the car, and then went to the downtown so we could see Old Town Quito. So these are just some pictures from there. A lot of colorful buildings. Like I said, a lot of Spanish colonial architecture. And then don't try to drive. Basically, don't try to drive. Walk, don't drive, because the traffic was really bad on the streets that allowed them. But like I said, some really cool buildings. I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. But yeah, this was some of the stuff in the downtown. So just trying to show some of the stuff here. This door was enormous, and I had Liz in the picture so you could see how enormous this door was. But this is the main square, Independence Square in Quito. This is kind of the center of the city. So we got some cool pictures of some of these buildings. I believe this is the presidential palace, um, but I have to go back and double check on that. But I believe this was the presidential palace, which we got. We were here kind of late in the afternoon, so we didn't really go in a lot of this stuff, but more just wanted a chance to walk around, see the buildings, see these kids blowing bubbles, and get a chance to check some stuff out. This is actually where we ate dinner in this restaurant, which was in this courtyard that was very pretty. And then there are a bunch of colonial era churches. So like this is one of the ones. I don't know the name of this off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at the notes. See, I would pull up Google Maps because I could like look at what these names are, but Google Maps, as we said, stealing personal information. This one I do know. This was San Francisco, which I believe is the oldest church in Quito. At least part of it is. This some of it, the core of the building dates back to the late 1500s, but obviously most of this is much more recent than that. And there was a big courtyard outside, and this was the inside. But this was a Saturday evening, and they were actually holding services, so we didn't stay to look around, poke around in these churches for any length of time. These are some street scenes, real quick. And there's a statue off in the distance. And yeah, so very pretty. Anyway, you get the idea. And then it was really dark, and so it we actually went and ate dinner, and then it poured down rain. And then after we got back from dinner, the rain had stopped. So let me just scroll ahead. And then when we came out after dinner, everything was soaked, but we got these really pretty images. Yeah, I don't think there was any festival going on. Food was really good. Ecuadorian food was delicious. We got a lot of stuff that was a lot of corn-based stuff, potatoes, rice. There were a lot of empanadas. Liz could attest to more of the different foods, but the food was very good throughout this trip. So we come out after this driving rainstorm. It's no longer raining, everything's soaked, but we got these really pretty evening shots. Like, look at this. Like, yeah, we got the sun going down over the mountains. Very, very pretty. So we got some nice views of the downtown, and like Liz was taking some of these shots of like, yeah, very atmospheric stuff. So I'd like to say that, and we haven't. This is before we have a chance to like fiddle with Photoshop or anything too. This is just the images, but like I really like the way this one came out. Just I don't know, I think it looks very pretty, of like everything in like the evening twilight after the rain. So anyway, and then we went and checked out the big church, the basilica that was in the downtown, but it was too late at this point to go inside. It was already like 8:30 or something, and it was all closed up. But anyway, just to give you some pictures, we only spent one day in Quito. They do actually eat guinea pigs there, and yes, it's Ecuador is about to celebrate its bicentennial. They had a lot of stuff for 2022 next year, which is the bicentennial for independence. So there you go. Just wanted to show some pictures of Quito. But the main focus of our trip was the Galapagos. So, oh, let's go back to this to the social studies map here. So after we had our 1 day in Quito, we went back to the airport. We actually had to get up at like 5:30 and drive back to the airport, and then flew over to the Galapagos. So let's just do a Galapagos map, shall we? Islands map. So I can have something to refer to. This should work. Can I get larger than this? Okay. Well, that's still maybe actually this, if I can zoom in on this at all, this would be good from Wikipedia. How's this? All right, this will work. This will work. Okay. All right. So, we flew into oh, okay. Liz had it in the chat anyway. So we flew into, well, first we had to get on our flight. And if you ever wanted to see what the Quito airport looks like, it's actually really nice. It's like brand new. Here's Liz eating breakfast. And then our flight, we wanted to capture this because we had, Galapagos on there. And by the way, these are pictures of us flying out of Quito, but they're kind of cool, just how mountainous it was as we were leaving. We're flying past like these enormous mountains in the Andes. But okay, so as we arrived, we flew over what is it, the easternmost island, San Cristobal, which is where we would actually leave later on. But this is us flying over the island. There's the one and only town, or of any size, in San Cristobal. And then this is where we landed, on the island of Baltra, which is this little island here. See the airport. This is where most of the international flights, or not international, because there are no international flights, but most of the flights from the mainland land here on Baltra. So this is where we're gonna land. You can see very densely populated airport area. This little island here. And then this was one of the other islands that we were flying over. Anyway, just to get a sense. So here we are, landing here in the Galapagos. Now, we had to do a lot of traveling on this first day because we landed in Baltra. Then we had to cross off the islands from Baltra to Santa Cruz. There's no bridge, although there probably should be one. So we had to cross this little amount of water there. So after we get out of the airport, we get on a bus, and the bus drives us on this really extremely arid island. I was actually surprised at how arid Baltra was. Just like it looked like you were in the United States, at least. It looked like you'd be in like Arizona or something. A lot of cactuses and so on. So then we drive to the little ferry that takes you from Baltra over to Santa Cruz, this little space of water here. There's a ferry. So that's what this is. You can see it's not very wide. You could probably swim across without much trouble, but obviously you're not going to do that with all your luggage. So we get on the ferry that takes us across, and here's what the ferry boat looks like. These little people mover thing. Hopped on board and then went across with all the other people. And so then we got to the other side, and then now we were on Santa Cruz, but we were on the northern end of Santa Cruz. The town in Santa Cruz, Puerto Ayora, is on the southern end. So we had a driver who drove us over to the other side and drove way over the speed limit. The speed limit was 70 kilometers per hour, and he was driving 100 to 110, so that was fun, but just kind of breezed us over to the other side of the island. And then we were in Puerto Ayora, but we didn't get to spend any time there. We just got a quick lunch here at this place called Regatta, which we would see more of later. And then it was time. Oh, these are pictures of some birds, but we have more wildlife later. But then it was time to go to another island because we were actually starting our Galapagos trip over here on Isabela, which is the largest island, but not very populated. So we had to get from Puerto Ayora over to Puerto Villamil, and that meant we had to get on a ferry boat to cross I think it's about 60 to 70 kilometers between the two, so about 50 or so miles, roughly speaking, between the two of these. So these are pictures of the harbor in Puerto Ayora as we're about to get on the ferry boat. Here's some of our first pictures of wildlife, some of these crabs, and here we are about to leave Santa Cruz. And oh, what's this? Sea lions. By the way, you're going to see a lot of pictures of sea lions because they were everywhere in the Galapagos. They just hang out on the docks. They like to sleep on the benches. They like to lay on the docks. You see them a lot. They just totally live in the middle of the towns or on the beaches. So it's pretty funny. All right, so now we're heading out onto the ferry boat. The ferry boats don't dock directly. You have to take a little taxi boat. So this is us taxiing out in one of these little boats to the boat that's going to take us to Isabella. And that was a boat called Gabby, Gabi or Gaby. We actually saw it spelled both ways. And Gabby was not the best ferry. It was very small and it was very choppy once we started getting going. And when we got on this first ferry, we did not know anything at all about where was like the best place to sit on the boat. We ended up being in the worst place, which was up in the front and with no air and with an only view looking back. And this boat was extremely choppy. Like we're just going across the open. If I go back to the map, we're just going across like the open Pacific Ocean in a tiny little speedboat at like going probably I don't know exactly, but like 30 to 40 miles per hour. So that's like 60 kilometers per hour. So we're going very fast. We're bouncing in the waves. We're getting thrown around everywhere. And I'll see if I can show you. I did try to capture a video of what this looked like, just to get an idea of how choppy it is. It looks like I'm moving the camera around like crazy, but I'm actually trying to hold it steady. And we're just getting thrown around. We don't even really have like a formal seat. We're just on a seat belt. So not too pleasurable to be in that position for 2 hours. It did not feel great to be in this little speedboat. So this was one of the low lights from the trip, honestly. It took about 2 hours to make the trip. It took about 2 hours. So soon I was sitting in the back was honestly better than sitting in the front because you had a lot more air and the back of the boat does not bounce around as much. But yeah, not exactly great from a safety perspective. But eventually we did make it across and we made it to Isabella, which is where we spent the next 3 days. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the Isabella pictures, and then maybe next week we'll look at the ones from Santa Cruz and San Cristobal, because there's a limit to how much time I want to spend on this, but I do want to show some of the highlights. Yeah, Liz said we survived, basically. Anyway, so we get there and we're pulling up to the little town in Isabella, which is Puerto Villamil, which is not large. I should mention that Isabella is the largest of the islands in the Galapagos. It has this horseshoe shape. It's basically six volcanoes, one, two, three, four, five, six, that each erupted. And most of these volcanoes are still, I believe all these volcanoes are still active. And just over time, as they erupted, they created an island. So this is the largest island, but it's very sparsely inhabited. It only has about 3,000 people that live on it, and like 2,800 of the 3,000 live in Puerto Villamil. So most of the island is uninhabited. It's pretty much just a little area right here, and then the rest is wilderness, which makes sense because it has volcanoes erupting. But anyway, these are some scenes in the harbor. Oh, look, what's this? It's another sea lion swimming in the harbor. So this is where we came in. And hey, what's on the docks? It's more sea lions. They are very cute. They reminded us a lot of Sydney, just because they had similar facial expressions and they like to lay around all the time. Yep, yep, yep. They like to lay around all the time. But the sea lions were really cute. Also, the iguanas. You're going to see a lot of pictures of sea iguanas. They are everywhere on the beaches. So these are just some quick pictures of where we stayed. We stayed at a place called Coral Blanco. Not a large hotel. I think they had 10 rooms. And they were kind of running our tour on the island. So they were super nice. Couldn't have been much friendlier. But here's some pictures of what the town of Puerto Villamil looks like. It's kind of just starting out its tourist infrastructure. And it's kind of like at a very early stage of developing tourism. So in many ways, it's still just like a sleepy local town with like some hotels near the beach and some restaurants. But it's not super fancy. You see advertisements for like go out on this boat, take this trip, etc. But as I said, it's really not super busy. So this is a little town square, Galapagos Isabella. Some dogs. You'll see some pictures of dogs because Liz liked to take pictures of dogs. We like this because it had the turtle for the hamburger on this little food stand truck. I don't know if we ever saw this actually selling food, but yeah. And then here's the beach. Our hotel was very close to the beach. It was like a 2-minute walk, so we spent a lot of time walking over to the beach. And this is what the beachfront looks like. Very pretty. So the weather, just a quick word about the weather. It tended to be cloudy most of the time, but it basically never rained while we were there. We were in the cold season for the Galapagos, which, and by cold, I mean it was like 72 Fahrenheit. So what is that? Like 22, 23 Celsius. And it never really got much hotter and it never really got much colder than that. And it was overcast a lot of the time, but like I said, basically never rained. The other season is in like January through March, and it's supposed to be warmer then, but it also is supposed to rain more. So I actually preferred the time of year we were there. All right. So first big activity that we did was we had done all this traveling by airplane and then ferry boat. So that was all we did that first day. But our second day, our first real full day in the Galapagos, we went on this hike up to the volcano Sierra Negra, which I think is it's Black Rock or Black Mountain, I think is the translation. I don't speak Spanish. Neither of us do. So we were kind of amusingly often catching ourselves falling into French because Liz and I both have some decent French speaking, and we would like accidentally find ourselves speaking French instead of Spanish. But we tried to make do as best we could, but the language was a bit of a barrier. Anyway, so you see right on the map, Sierra Negra. This is the I believe it's the largest of the volcanoes on Isabella. So we were driven in the morning up to the kind of the base of the crater, and then this hike was a hike to go see the crater and then see some of the lava flows that had come from previous eruptions. And this was the longest hike we did because this was an 8 kilometer hike in each direction. So 16K total, which is right around 10 miles. So it's a pretty good hike overall. All right, so at the start of the hike, it was really cloudy. It was raining a little bit, and we're like, "Oh man, are we going to get to see anything?" But as we hiked, oh, we ran into cows on the walk. Apparently, there are farms along the path getting up to the top of the crater. But as we hiked, it cleared up, and it actually got very sunny up on top of the crater. So yeah, you see some this, and this is what a lot of the trail walking up looked like. We were in a group of 6 with a guide, so these 4 people were the others who were all Spanish speakers, and then us, and then our guide Pablo, who was awesome and was really really nice. And we had him for a couple of different activities, but he was great. All right, so this is us walking up to the top, and then up here, boom, here's the crater. So this crater is enormous, like just a gigantic crater. I believe they said it was 10 kilometers across to the other side. So like we're at the one side of the crater, and then the other, I guess it's caldera, not crater. It should be more precise. And then the other end is way off there in the distance. And so this is just the caldera where it erupts. And all this down here is dried lava from the last time it erupted. And this is an active volcano. It last erupted, they said, in 2018. So very safe on like an ordinary basis. But yeah, it does erupt periodically. I think the previous time before 2018, I think they said it had erupted before that in 2005. So yeah, this was pretty cool getting to see this big crater, well, like the center of the volcano. So we just have some pictures of what that looked like. And this is zooming into what it looks like down at the bottom. Nothing grows there right now because it's like the inside of a volcano. So we had that hike. Here's some pictures of some birds, by the way, while we were taking a quick stop. These are Galapagos finches, if I remember correctly. And they're famous because they're one of the species that Charles Darwin looked at when he was like investigating the wildlife, because there's like a bunch of different types with different types of beaks, and this was the type that's present on Isabella. Okay, so then after we kind of reached the top of the volcanic crater, then the path was to walk into some of the lava fields from past eruptions. So that's what this is from. And they took us through 3 different versions, 3 different prior eruptions. There was a version that was a lava flow from like 1,000 years ago, and then one from 500 years ago, and then the last one was from 40 years ago, from 1979. So we walked through kind of these different areas where there had been previous eruptions. So this was up here was the 1,000-year-old lava field. So like everything's pretty much grown back from 1,000 years ago. And then we passed into the 500-year-old lava field, which was much more arid and had a lot of cactuses. I don't think either of us were expecting to see this many cactuses in the Galapagos, but like this area, and then these are like places where the lava flowed. So here we're in the 500-year-old lava field, which is much more much more barren, much more desolate, mostly just cactuses here. This is a little crater where I guess lava spurted out at one point in the past, and there's like a sinkhole formed by the lava. This was a lava tunnel here that Liz is posing next to, where the lava flowed through here and like then hardened afterwards, which was really cool to see. And then down here at the bottom, we went from the 500-year-old lava field to the 40-year-old lava field. And the cool thing was you could see it was like a line where the boundary was, just darker stone. So there it is. There's the marker. And there's basically nothing growing in the 40-year-old lava field, just still too recent overall. But like, yeah, you can see it's just kind of bare rock for the most part, except there were a couple little plants trying to grow in the 40-year-old lava field, just trying, just starting, but by and large, aside from them, it was just like volcanic dried lava essentially. So had dried in a gazillion different ways, and it kind of felt like you were on. Some people said felt like you were on the moon. Other people said felt like you were on Mars. Just a really weird place to be. I can't say I've ever been in a place quite like this before. So this I really think looks like it really looks like some of the pictures that the Mars rovers send back. Aside from the blue sky, obviously, Mars doesn't have the same atmosphere as Earth, but like other than that, you really could be on a different planet here because there's just nothing. There's nothing living, nothing growing here. No animals, no plants, nothing because it's just lava overall. So a really cool place to walk around and hike. And then we got up to the top of this ridge, and then that was where we sat and ate lunch, which was really cool. And we actually had views over to the next island from here. So like all this is dried lava again, but like you can see how the land kind of curves around. If I go back to the map here, we were like right here, and we were seeing the island curve around like this, and we could see over to Fernandina, the next island, like off in the distance because we were up pretty high. Fernandina is the most recent island. It's only about 50,000 years old, which is obviously super old for humans, but very, very young in geologic terms. And also has an active volcano, and no one lives on this island because it's apparently too active, too many volcanic eruptions, so no one lives there. But we could kind of see over to that in the distance. Yeah, so that's why there was nothing here because the this was all from the 1979 eruption. So there's no plants or tree life because there is no soil for plants to grow in, not yet. Um, oh, and Liz got these pictures of this bird, which is apparently a kind of a rare bird to see in the Galapagos, at least on Isabella. I cannot remember what this one's called, but had like the blue circle around its eye, which was pretty cool. So like you can see where the lava flowed, and then there are like these little patches of vegetation, which was like the lava didn't reach there. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. All right, so that was our first activity, and then the next activity that we got to do, excuse me, is we went back to Puerto Villamil, and then we were able to do a snorkeling little trip here in Puerto Villamil. Now, we didn't have this camera with us because we didn't want to get it wet. We actually had a separate camera that we were intending to take into the water. So these pictures were taken with the camera that we were going to take into the water, this little place called Concha de Perla, which was right next to the dock. So we got to walk through this mangrove grove. This is Pablo, our guide, who, like I said, was really, really nice. More sea lions, lots of sea lions. These are all mangroves that where the little trail goes through. More sea iguanas. You'll see more of those. And more sea lions. So many sea lions. They were all on the docks. And I actually was able to get a video of them here that I will play for you. One of them's trying to nurse.
Just don't care about people at all.
No. Sometimes that's a big male. Sometimes.
I was looking at the cojones.
Sometimes they can be dangerous.
Yeah.
That's the male one, kind of a jerk. I love the way they walk, by the way.
I want a full-grown female or still young female?
It's a young female. And looks like a male. Yeah, it's a male.
Oh, yeah.
It's a boy. It's a baby. That's a full-grown female.
Anyway,
It's a baby boy.
so I hope that that's amusing, watching them hang out there. That does come through, by the way, right? You guys can see the videos. Hopefully you can see them. All right, so so we were here to snorkel in the water, and I was like, oh man, we bought this camera specifically so we could take it in the water and get some underwater pictures of like the wildlife there. And it was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna take the camera in, I'm gonna get these pictures. Here's me ready to hop into the water. It's like this is gonna be great. And then guess what? The camera immediately breaks the instant we take it in the water. And the reason for that is I did not lock the camera properly. You need to lock it so the water doesn't get in. And I didn't do that. And so I broke another camera. So, yep. Uh, broke another camera. Great. So I think Liz has a couple pictures from here. Let me see. So these are the ones from Liz's camera. And she was able to get a couple more from this area. But that's all we got. We didn't get any of the underwater pictures, unfortunately. And that's a shame because we had a really great time snorkeling here. The water was a little bit cold. They said it would be. But we saw a whole bunch of stuff that we wanted to see. We got to swim with the sea lions. There was one in the water that was kind of playing around, which was awesome. We got to see sea turtles. We saw one of them here. We would see more in the water later, but we got to see sea turtle. We got to see manta rays here. There was like 6 mantas that like swam underneath us, and it was so cool. And I really wish we'd been able to get some pictures of them, but someone, this guy, broke the underwater camera. So yeah, there's me with the sea lion, but we don't have underwater pictures from this, unfortunately. So you'll have to take our word for it that we got to see a lot of the wildlife. Yeah, that was like a $300 camera. So not so great. Not so great. All right, so that was our second day. And then the next day, we had a couple of other things I want to show because they're pretty cool. All right, so the next day, we were back with our same guide, Pablo again, and we went bike riding to some of the stuff that was located along the shore. So here we are on the bikes. And we went first to a flamingo pond, but guess what? There were no flamingos there. So, oops. Well, that happens sometimes. But then we got to see the Galapagos tortoise. Yeah, cute angry Pakal. We got to see the Galapagos tortoises. There's a breeding center on Isabella. There's actually a Galapagos tortoise breeding center on all 3 of the islands, but I'm going to show you the one on Isabella today. So we got to see one of the big highlights. The reason why people go to the Galapagos is the turtles. Yay! So I think I actually posted this one on the Discord last week, but we got to see lots of turtles. And in fact, we have a ton of pictures of the turtles. So if you're if you ever wanted to see turtles, that's the place where you go. And they had a lot of them. It's not like they had like 10 at this place. They had like, I don't know, hundreds of turtles at the breeding center. So, yep, here they are. Lots of turtles. Turtles at different ages. Some real little ones that were just growing up. Like these are some of the little ones. I think Liz was taking some pictures of this guy eating. Here's some of the little ones, and here's some of the bigger ones. The different types. Apparently, there's like 10 different types on Isabella because, or places where they're located. There's a whole bunch of different types because apparently the turtles cannot cross the lava flows. So there's like a whole bunch of different subspecies because they can't cross the lava and then they all develop in isolation. Yeah, here's some more of the turtles. Lots of turtles. Many turtles. Big turtles. Little turtles. And then the tiny itty bitty little baby turtles. These are 1 year or younger. And they're very small when they're little. Very cute. I think we have some pictures of this one eating. Yeah, look at that. Oh, you eat that little grass turtle? Yep. Anyway, so lots and lots of turtles, and then more of the big ones. This was a different subspecies from the other one. Then note that these ones have like the box shape, rectangular in shape. Yeah, like this shell just very clearly looks different than some of the other ones. So we're not experts on turtle. Oh, and then giving us a little cheeky grin there. So just to give you an idea of what these ones look like. So I guess they're all technically tortoises, yes. So what do they look like when they're moving? They are so funny to watch move.
Just saying. No, I'm.
Yesterday, Bob the damselfish.
Yeah, sorry. It's my go-to name. In this case, it would probably be like Jesus the tortoise or George. May he rest in peace.
They don't go very fast.
We are gonna go see Taxidermy George. Yes, apparently.
They also like to climb on top of each other for whatever reason, and they like pile up in these big traffic jams. But like they were climbing on top of each
It's like
other.
DC traffic.
Liz said it's like DC traffic. Like, look at this poor guy. He's about to get stepped on.
That sounds.
Also, some of them are kind of jerks, and they like to stick out their neck, which is like a way of asserting dominance. Is how they fight with each other, as they stick out their necks.
The national park is.
Anyway, so I don't want to show too much of this, but I just find it really amusing. Yeah, I was trying to show one of the videos of them like fighting with each other. I don't know. Maybe this is one of them doing that. Oh, these are the little ones.
And Fridays.
I don't. Okay, so that's not a video of them fighting with each other. Let me try the other one that we have here. These are the little ones. I guess we don't have a good one unless this one shows it.
And you can see, and you can make an idea of how.
We might have gotten video of them dueling at one of the other tortoise centers because we did go to several.
Because of the vegetation, yeah. Look, some places are really dry. Really dry. And some places look like this.
All right, well, you probably get the idea. I've probably shown enough footage of the tortoises moving here and there. They do look like old people, for sure. So we stopped to visit the tortoise center, and then after that, we continued our bike ride, and we went to this little trail here, the Muero de las Lágrimas. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but we didn't go all the way to this, which is the Wall of Tears in Spanish, which was built by convict labor in the past. So we didn't go all the way down there, but we stopped to see some of these different places. So, oh, and we were right by the beach, by the way. So one of the cool things about this was we were able to spot tortoises not in the breeding center, but in the wild. So like here's a tortoise just out in the wild that was, right by the side of this path. And this is actually a different one. Just, oh, look, there's a tortoise right there by the side of the biking path. They got very scared when people appeared, so we didn't want to get too close because they would pull into their shells and felt kind of bad. So, yeah, there's the don't touch the tortoises sign. We were on Camino de las Tortugas, which I believe is Path of the Turtles or Tortoises. So, also a lot of cactuses. Mentioned there's a lot of cactuses in the Galapagos. Here's yet another tortoise with another group spotting this one. And oh, look how scared this little tortoise is. That's okay. We're not going to hurt you. But yeah, they really do pull into their shells when they go in there. Also, stay away from the apples. Some of the trees have poison apples that the tortoises eat. And this was this cool little path that went through like the mangrove trees. This little isolated pond, cove. I'm not sure what to call it. Also, so iguanas. The Galapagos also known for the sea iguanas. They have land iguanas as well, but these are the sea iguanas. They swim in the water, and they also like to lay on the beaches. And they're kind of everywhere. They're just laying in the path. So we have more pictures of the sea iguanas. This was a little inlet or something, not as interesting. And then this was by the beach. These are some pictures near the beach. There was this little place where water flowed into this. I think this was a former lava cave formed by lava, and there was water that flowed in there now. More pictures of the little crabs. Apparently, the crabs are dark coloring when they're born, when they're like adolescents, and then when they're adults, they get red coloring. Why, I'm not exactly sure, but that's apparently how it works. And so here we are, and look, more bird life. So these are pelicans. The pelicans are enormous. Liz got some good pictures of them, and some pictures of the crabs, and some pictures of this wading bird. I think this is like a heron or something. I'm not exactly sure. And then, oh, look, the iguanas. Yes, there's many, many, many iguanas. So many sea iguanas and the crabs. And then this bird that's probably trying to eat the crabs. And then we got some really good pictures of pelicans. Like this is a pretty good capture of a pelican in flight that Liz got here, along with more iguanas, more crabs on the water, and then I think some more pictures. Yeah, that's a good one. This is a really good picture of the pelican in flight with like the background on the, and this one's good too. You can actually see the town in the background here, but came out looking pretty good. Oh, Liz is handing me the Birds of Galapagos identification card uh, as we're looking at some of these birds here. Okay. Well, I don't recognize the wading bird on here. Uh, but apparently this is the brown pelican that I'm showing you based on what we're seeing here. Birds of the Galapagos. We did get paid to pick this up to help identifying this. Anyway, so yeah, some night, and this was all on the beach, just to give you an idea of what this looked like. So that was our morning activity. And then for our afternoon activity, we got on a boat and went to a little offshore island where we there was more wildlife viewing. So let me just show a couple pictures of that. So we were on a boat with these people here, and we went to this little tiny offshore island called Tintoreras, which has a little walking trail and more wildlife, and looked like this, which is apparently also dried volcanic rock, but had kind of this wild look. Sometimes the lava dries really smooth, and sometimes it dries in like this really spiky, rocky shape. So we landed, and there's little park benches, and of course, there's sea lions sleeping on the park benches, of course. That's, you know. But this is what it was like walking through. Really cool looking terrain. And of course, there was more wildlife. There's more sea iguanas. So many sea iguanas. These are little ones that can't be very old. Just on the path, more iguanas, all the iguanas, iguanas for everyone. So if you don't like lizards, yeah, if you don't like lizards, this was not the place to go because there are other lizards too, smaller than the iguanas. Okay. There was a little water inlet, and these are sharks, like little baby sharks that like to hang out. I don't recall what type of shark these are, but little sharks in the water that we got to take pictures of. They were in this little narrow, like little narrow channel or inlet of water. That's where the sharks are, and these are, people taking pictures of them. There's me with the iguanas, and there's this another sea lion just doing his thing. There's a reason why we think of Sydney when we think of the sea lions. Same expression. Oh, look at that sea puppy. Yeah, you relax on the rocks. This was like a juvenile sea lion, probably waiting for its mom to come back. Yeah, very cute. Very cute. So we have a lot of pictures of that. And I'm gonna try to go ahead because we got then we were able to spot a sea turtle in the water. And there we go. There's a sea turtle poking its head out. So we had gotten to swim with the sea turtle earlier, but then this was a chance where we actually got some pictures of it on land. There you go. You can see it pretty well there. Oh, even better. There we go. So we saw the land tortoises, and then we got to see the sea turtles as well. So Liz got some pretty good pictures. Yeah, there we go. That's a good one too. See the sea turtle. You got to take a bunch of pictures because you don't know which is what's going to actually capture, especially stuff that's underwater like the turtle. There we go. Hey there, little sea turtle, coming on up to take a breath. Just relax here. So anyway, you get the idea. We got a lot of pictures of the sea turtles, and I took this zoomed out shot. This is where the sea turtle was swimming in this little this connected to the ocean, but this was like a little sheltered area, which is why the animals were in there. And more sea iguanas. I like this picture because you can just see how they're everywhere. You can't even walk on the trail without like stepping over them. They generally did not react to people coming near them. They just laid there. And the sea lions were the same thing. So we had another snorkeling trip after this. We got in the water and were snorkeling, but of course we didn't take the camera in the water. And we saw more sea turtles. We actually saw a whole bunch of sea turtles on this snorkeling trip. We saw like 5 or 6 of them. So we got to swim with sea turtles. We got to swim in the coral reef. There were a lot of fish that we got to see. But because somebody broke the water camera, we don't have any underwater pictures. We were with a group and we're hoping that some of the people There were people in the group who had some cameras. We're hoping some of them will send us pictures. We exchanged email addresses. We're hoping some of them will send some pictures, but that has not happened yet. And since we don't know those people, uh, we might not see them ever. But oh well. So it's still a really good experience. And then I'll finish this just by showing a couple more pictures of the downtown in Isabela. So here's the beach. We had a chance to walk around the beach in the evening, and it was got some nice pictures as the sun was going down. This deserves a quick mention. El Faro is a restaurant. This is where we ate our meals, and the reason why we ate our meals at El Faro is because the person who owned our hotel was also the same person who owned this restaurant. So, our meals were included on the trip, but we had to eat at certain places. We later learned that the trip we had paid for was supposed to offer us a choice of places to eat, like two or three different places you could pick. Well, we didn't know that when we started out, and because the same guy owned the hotel who also owned the restaurant, he just had us eat at El Faro for every single meal. So we had 4 dinners and I think 2 lunches here, 6 different meals. And the food was very good and the service was great. They were super nice, but we would have liked to have eaten at a different restaurant. Anyway, so it looks kind of run down, but the food was actually very good. So it was just, we would have liked to have eaten somewhere else when we were on Isabella. The food was really good, really, really good. They gave us an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert for every meal. So we certainly couldn't complain about the quality of the food. It was more, you like to see some different places. But Liz took this one, getting the sun going down in the like on the cloudy sky over the beach. And then there was like this random little platform on the beach that we went up to, and then these are pictures taken from up there. Looking back at the beach. It's not much. Puerto Villamil is very small, so there wasn't a ton there. And then this was like the water on the rocks. This was another little restaurant we would have liked to have eaten here. We were apparently supposed to be able to eat here, but because we were at El Faro, we weren't eating here. We would have liked to have had a meal there. But and then this was just another restaurant that we didn't eat at, but would have liked to have eaten at. This is the church in downtown Puerto Villamil. Little church has the beach theme going. Kind of interesting. Catholic church, of course, because it's in the Galapagos. And just a couple more pictures of people in the downtown. So that's pretty much it. I think that pretty much covers all the stuff that we saw. I'll just give you one more sea lion video here.
Okay, the car is there. My family.
I think it's the sea lion's scratching itself, I think.
Sorry, no, please, it's fine.
Okay, attention, what you said.
Okay.
All right. So I think that more or less covers what we wanted to see there. We did have another trip on where we went kayaking. I'll just show a quick. So for that, we were using Liz's camera. I'll just show a couple quick pictures from that. So we had a chance to go out in the kayak, and here we go. Just if you want to see. So here we are on the kayak together. And if you're curious about what the type of food was like, Liz did a great job of capturing. This is an example of like some of the food that we had. I believe that this was either chicken or fish served with like rice and string beans. Oh, I had stir fried beef, and then we got this dessert that Liz really liked. It was like a plantain, but then with like this super like cooked, and then with like a super sweet sauce that Liz really really liked. That's me reading a book while we're waiting for our tour. But yeah, so just us out on the kayaks, which was kind of cool to see. And the big wildlife that we saw on this excursion was we were able to see the blue-footed boobies and the penguins. We were able to get better pictures. Oh, here we go. Here's Liz's video. We were able to get better pictures of the boobies later on, so I don't want to talk as much about them, but this was the only time we saw penguins in the Galapagos. I believe that's them over there, or a penguin at least, just hanging out on the rocks. We were in a kayak, so of course we couldn't get super close, and we were using cell phone camera instead of the fancy camera, but still pretty cool. And I only see if I can get the zoom in on one of these. Let's see if we can. So these are the blue-footed boobies here, and I believe I believe that's one of the penguins. It's a little hard to see though, zooming in, but we did get to see the Galapagos penguin. There were a couple of them on these rocks here. Maybe Liz is explaining where it is. Blue-footed boobies are birds. Yes, I should mention that. Yeah, sorry about that if that's not clear. They're called that because of their blue feet. Sorry, we have better pictures of them elsewhere. But yeah, so that was kind of the highlight there. And that was mostly what we saw in Isabella. So since I've been rambling on here for almost an hour or so, I think this is a good place to stop. And I'll do part two of this next week when I'll go through what we saw in Santa Cruz and San Cristobal. Mostly more wildlife, but some good stuff. So I hope this was entertaining, and I hope you guys didn't mind me walking through some of these pictures here. All right. Why don't we then get ready for the Civ Fridays portion of the stream then? I'm going to set this up, and thanks again for sticking with me through this part.